Hey guys, so today's video is basically a continuation of my last video, which I'll link in the description, which didn't do as well as I thought it would, considering it's like quite a serious thing happening right now with James Charles and stuff like that. It was a 10 and 10 and it was a sponsored video. It kind of ruined my day, but that's fine. I'll link in description if you guys want to catch up on everything that's happening and everything that's going on. Social media will be in description along with my beauty channel and anything else you might need to find. Subscribe, hit that bell, like, comment for engagement, and anything else will be in description. Let's just get into it. So there's an article by Insider that came out. One is for free for everyone to view, and it's the one that I'm going to read to you guys today. And then the other one is behind a paywall. I actually did pay because I like to be up to date with my Insider articles, considering they talk about, you know, content creators and different YouTubers. So I like to just be kept up with that. And considering it's behind a paywall, I'm only going to read segments of it because I just don't think it's fair for me to read it out. Even though it is kind of fair use, I'm going to read segments to you, and then you, if you want to buy and pay for it, you can read the rest. So we have the first one written on 11th of May by Kat here on Insider and Twitter. She's big on Twitter as well. So it says, James Charles' former creative director who's suing him says he used the N-word. James Charles said he was being reckless when he interacted with fans on social media, and that was like with the video Hold Myself Accountable. So beauty influencer James Charles has a lucrative career, but it's on a downswing. Now a former employee is suing him over claims of wrongful termination and non-payment. Charles's former creative director also told Insider that Charles uses the N-word in front of her. Beauty YouTuber James Charles is facing another threat to his troubled empire. The 21-year-old multimillionaire has been embroiled in controversy from the fallout of an underage scandal, temporarily losing monetization on YouTube and severing ties with Morphe Cosmetics. Now Charles's former producer and creative director Kelly Rocklin is speaking out about her lawsuit against him, alleging wrongful termination, disability discrimination, failure to provide reasonable accommodation, and failure to pay minimum wage for overtime hours worked. In an interview with the Insider, Rocklins and another source alleged that Charles used the N-word in front of them as well. So there's just a lot in this interview about his behaviour also behind the scenes. Of course, if you guys don't know, he is being sued for wrongful termination, and I'm going to get into all of that throughout this article, and him not paying enough wages or not paying wages that she was owed. But also now we're coming out with him possibly not even being a good human being at all. Not like we didn't know this, but it's just another allegation to add on top of all the other allegations of him not being a great person. Rocklin is 26 and was 23 when she worked for Charles for about 6 months in 2018. She told Insider the story behind her lawsuit and why she now feels she can publicly speak about her experience working for Charles. While Rocklin said she initially wanted to settle with Charles privately, she said he and his legal representation declined to settle during early conversations in 2019, indicating they would prefer to litigate the dispute in private arbitration. In March 2020, Rocklin filed her complaint in LA County Superior Court. And I did hear about this is because if James filed for arbitration, it's up to him to pay the costs of arbitration. He just didn't pay them in time. So there was no, nothing was being paid, nothing was moving forward. So she filed a complaint to the LA Supreme Court, and they immediately basically said, yes, you didn't pay for stuff. We're going straight into litigation. Charles declined to comment on Rocklin's claims to Insider and denied all of her claims through his attorney in a response to the complaint. In the video he posted to Twitter on May 10th, Charles accused Rocklin of taking her story to the media in an attempt to publicly pressure him into a higher settlement offer. Charles questioned why Rocklin spoke out now after the legal dispute has been ongoing for 2 years. In response to Charles's May 10th video, which was, I mentioned in my last video, basically he was going over this whole lawsuit. He was basically just saying how he thinks it's like blackmailing, how she's picking a convenient time to basically have a go at him publicly when she can see that he's in a scandal, even though they've been in litigation for 2 years. He's basically just like, oh, it's a very convenient time for you to have a go at me and try to cancel me. But yeah, that's basically what he said in the video, and now these articles are essentially a response to that video. But not really, because he knew those articles were coming out and that's why he filmed the video, but maybe this sped up the articles a little bit. In response to Charles's May 10th video, Rocklin's attorney told Insider that the reason the case has taken so long is because of Charles's legal team's attempt to compel arbitration and their subsequent appeal when arbitration was denied by the court. Rocklin says she's hoping to set a public precedent for how influencers treat employees, and she's in the process of litigation to be compensated for unpaid wages she says were withheld from her, along with damages, penalties, attorney fees, and interest from the 3 years since Rocklin was fired. So she hasn't been, so she's alleging that she was wrongfully terminated and then not paid all of the wages she was owed until the moment that she was terminated. And she also wants interest from the wages that she hasn't been paid because they're delayed by 3 years. And she wants obviously legal fees, all of that stuff covered by James as well if she wins litigation. I know Emily D. Baker has been filming live streams basically going over all of the documents, and it's really interesting to see how her lawyers have laid stuff out. There is really no proof so far. There's no screenshots of anything. In the documents, she did say, her lawyers said that allegedly he would be really nice to her in text messages or emails or any written form that you can use as evidence. But then in person, he'd be like, why aren't you doing enough work? I know you have a concussion, but like, why aren't you working? So it seems like her lawyers are basically trying to get at the fact that there is no proof for the stuff that he was saying, that it was like whenever he was saying good stuff, it was through text messages, and whenever he was saying bad stuff, it was in person. So that would insinuate that it's basically her word against his. So I'm just wondering how they're going to settle that. However, Emily D. Baker did make a good point, like the lawyer she is, that it's very easy to prove unpaid wages. Like, you just go into your bank statements and you say, hey, like, no wages were paid. This is how much you paid me for, and you didn't pay me anymore. Like, this should be a pretty clear-cut case to solve. Like, you terminated me because I had a concussion, unless he gives proof for something that she really messed up on. Like, there's really not many reasons that you would just fire someone for out of nowhere, mainly since he had promoted her not long before this. So he really would have to show some compelling evidence for why he fired her, and then he would have to show in bank statements where he paid her wages. And if he didn't, then that's case pretty much done, right? Like, that's the evidence. All the extra stuff about him being mean to her and all of that stuff, that doesn't really have to be proven. Like, that's just kind of like, this is what the environment was like. But the other stuff that's actually the main bulk of the case is pretty easy to prove. So I don't think she would start a case knowing that she has been paid the wages, because that would be really dumb, because you can literally just look into your bank statement and be like, here's all the 72 grand that you were owed. I don't know. I just feel like no reasonable lawyer would take this case on knowing that she was paid the wages. Then we have Rocklin said that she worked 80 hours a week or more and wasn't paid overtime at minimum wage. But in a perfect world, Rocklin said she'd still work for Charles. She described a long-term vision of her role on his team to Insider, as well as what she believes led to everything falling apart. So I'm assuming it was kind of like, you know, people make sacrifices. It's usually with corporate jobs, lawyers, finance, accountants, they'll work 100 hours a week, not really get compensated for it, but they're hoping that in 5 to 10 years time, they're going to be millionaires. So there's always that silver lining that everyone's like, look, I'm going to work really hard right now and get exploited, but maybe down the line, I will be paid well. So I'm assuming it was the same thing for her, where she was just like, I'll work 80-hour weeks now and I won't get paid overtime, but this will look really good on my resume. And I think if I can just stick it out, I could do something big. So I do understand, you know, people are like, why didn't you just quit? Well, because that's not how the real world works. You don't just quit, because some people have bills to pay. And this was probably a really good, you know, opportunity for her that she really appreciated at the time, and then things started to go south. Charles responded to Rocklin on Twitter before publication. Charles declined to address specific claims made by Rocklin to Insider prior to publication because of the ongoing status of their litigation. However, in his May 10th video, he addressed claims that Insider sent him. So like, this isn't to do with litigation. You just didn't have a good answer, is basically what's coming out here. We are dealing with the court of public opinion. This is what James said, which is a court that's not on my side right now. He said in the video referencing his underage scandal. Charles specifically denied using the N-word slur behind closed doors, a claim Insider sent to him in advance. So he's saying absolutely not. She's saying definitely yes. However, this is her word against his. And I'm assuming he wasn't really sending that in messages. I'm assuming that was stuff that if he was saying it, he was saying in person where there isn't really much proof. So once again, other than the wages and the wrongful termination, everything else is pretty much like her word against his. How do we prove this? Unless she was secretly filming him, which I'm pretty sure is illegal in California because of the two-party consent laws. How do we prove this? I don't know. But has James got a problematic past that would make it very easy to believe these claims? Absolutely. But also, we don't have proof for this. That's why I'm saying allegedly, because we don't actually have proof for anything right now. In response to Charles' video, Rocklin told Insider that Charles uses the slur with the hard R in front of her on numerous occasions. She said he used it casually during video production. She said he would refer to his friends using the slur. Another person who had a personal relationship with Charles prior to 2016 told Insider that Charles casually said the slur in front of them in high school too. Rocklin told Insider that Charles' longtime employees and friends don't speak up against him publicly or hold him accountable in person because they're birds of feather and all want something they can obtain by remaining in Charles' good graces. I wholeheartedly believe this and agree with this. I think a lot of the times all the TikTokers that hang out with him are either just as bad as him and they just haven't been caught yet, or being friends with him is more of a benefit than not being friends with him. You know, when all of this stuff came out, Noah Beck with his whole chest went on Hollywood Fix and said, of course James is coming back. He's James Charles. Of course he's coming back. I'm supporting him wholeheartedly. I don't think he did anything wrong. That makes me think that you're doing the same thing as him, or you have no ethics and morals whatsoever and you prefer to continue being friends with him to have the benefit of his friendship than to actually say this is legally and morally and ethically wrong, which means you have no backbone as a human being, or you're just as bad as him and you also are just, you know, a bad person. So like, either way, when I look at his friends, I'm like, what are you trying to say through these actions? Because there are so many people, just looking at this now, there are so many people that have slowly distanced themselves from James, where it's not very obvious, but it's slow and steady. Like, I haven't seen Charlie and Dixie with him in a really long time. I haven't seen Addison with James ever, really. Addison seems to have gone a completely different direction. She hangs out with actual like celebrities now, or a few TikTokers, or she'll hang out with like Dixie and Charlie every now and then. But in reality, I've never really seen her with James, so she's really got nothing to comment on. Charlie and Dixie used to really hang out with him, and now I don't see them together at all, unless he's just not going out, like refusing to leave the house just in case Hollywood Fix catches him, which would also make sense. But Noah, with his whole chest, he could have just said, oh, I don't really know what's happening. I haven't spoken to James in a while. I really have no comment about this. Wouldn't that have been just a little bit more neutral? Like, even if you didn't want to throw your friend under the bus, just to say something a little more neutral than this would have been great. But right now, what's going on in my head is like, you're either a criminal doing criminal things, or you just don't see anything wrong with him doing the stuff he did because it benefits you to not see anything wrong with it. Either way, you're a bad person. So I definitely agree with this little paragraph, and it just makes me think a lot of the times, you know, about the people on the internet. In 2017, Charles apologized for a tweet about the Ebola virus in Africa that many people viewed as racist, and he has also publicly apologized for tweeting a microaggression at Alicia Keys, and that's why people are believing the N-word allegation even without proof, because like I said, he does have a problematic past. And when someone does have a problematic past, that seems to then be a pattern of behavior. So like when more allegations come out, you're more likely to believe them because pattern of behavior. For example, by Sister, right? It came out, no one really believed Tati what they did, then they didn't. And then more allegations came out, and at that point, as a human being with a functioning brain, you're just like, well, of course. This seems like a pattern of behavior. It's a trend. How many more allegations come out before we say this is definitely true? How many more allegations are we going to say people are clout chasing or doing this for views, doing this to ruin James's career? As some you have to say, no one else has this many allegations unless they're actually true. Maybe one person lied, maybe two people lied. At this point, it's like 10 to 20 allegations. 10 to 20 people do not have the time or energy to lie about James. Like, they just don't. So sometimes it is just a pattern of behavior that you start to notice with people. In early 2020, Charles also denied singing the N-word along to a song on his Instagram story. And he said, how stupid would I have been to confidently record a video of me singing the N-word and still have it up the next morning? Ask P. Louise. She'll tell you about that. Do you guys remember this? P. Louise, the owner of the brand, she did like Instagram MEA makeup. She went to a Drake concert, filmed herself saying the N-word along with the song, posted on her Instagram story. When she was called out, she said, I actually have a black boyfriend. So that was the whole explanation. She just went, I have a black boyfriend, so I guess I'm allowed to say slurs. If you're not a person of colour, you cannot say the N-word ever, Charles told a paparazzi in January 2020. In his May 10th video, Charles also said he feels as though he's been blackmailed by Rocklin. In response, Rocklin's attorney denied that Rocklin was blackmailing Charles. He said Charles' legal team attempted to kill Insider Story by offering a settlement in response to Rocklin's claims to buy her silence. James made a reasonable settlement offer for an employment lawsuit. She countered with an outrageous amount of money to settle and to retract her public statements. James wasn't willing to pay her off. Sam Mangan, Charles' manager, told Insider in a statement. Once again, word of mouth, his word against hers, this time the other way around. She's saying he used slurs. He's saying that she's offering outrageous amounts of money to stay silent. No proof for any of this as of right now. So this is just like, you know, what we do know so far is wages can be easily proven, termination can be easily proven. That's all we have right now. All this extra stuff is just extra stuff. I like to talk about it, but I don't want this to sound as if I'm saying it as a fact, because it's not. Contrary to popular belief, I've never paid anybody to speak or not speak about me, James said, and this will not be the first time that I do it. My only option is to pursue this to the fullest extent of the law and hope that when it gets to a courtroom, justice will be served. So then we had the one behind the paywall, which came out a day later, and it said James Charles' ex-employee speaks about lawsuit claiming he didn't pay overtime and asked her to shave his butt. However, now thinking about this, right, the wages will also be very difficult to prove because, hear me out, she was paid the 72 grand a year for her actual hours that she was supposed to do. So let's just say she was supposed to do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that was what the 72 grand was for. How will she then prove overtime? How will she prove how, unless he's got cameras set up in his house where they could go through day by day and see how many times she stayed overtime and how much of that was actual work versus how much of that was social time. I thought it was very clear cut, like this is how you prove wages, was the money sent over, but this isn't about her regular wages, this is about her not getting overtime paid. And it's just very difficult to prove overtime when you work in someone's house, because like I said, unless they have cameras set up in their house, recording visual and audio so they can see that you're quite clearly working, it's very difficult to prove how long you've done work for. So I'm just wondering how they would prove in court that she did work overtime, how much she worked overtime, and how much he actually owes her, if he owes her anything. So now thinking about it, How would that be proven? I don't know. I want to see it play out in court because I just think this is really interesting. How would that be proven unless she's sitting there with a timer and timing herself working? Like I said, I think this would just be really difficult. It's her word against his once again. It's just very difficult. And also to shave his butt. I think that's the cherry on top. This was apparently for the Coachella outfit that he did. So in this article, mainly they talk about how, well, this is kind of setting up the case for Rocklyn. So she's basically saying how if it wasn't for the work that she did, he would not have the success he has. And he mentioned this in the video, so he must have known that that was going to be in the article, because he mentioned this and basically said, like, BS. So this is kind of what she's saying. The first time Rocklyn encountered Charles, she said, was when a friend showed her his job posting on Snapchat in February 2018. At the time, she said she had no idea who Charles was, but she saw his young career as a promising challenge. She emailed her pitch to him and was selected for the position in March. What I told him was, James, we have to study your target audience and basically make content that appeals to those people, and we can dish out 2 to 3 videos a week, and I'm the person to help you do that. Her position was described in her employment contract, which Insider viewed in part as several jobs rolled into one, with the title Creative Director and Director of Operations. Rocklyn said she was tasked with producing and editing Charles's YouTube videos, strategizing his social media posts and video concepts, taking photos and videos of him running his merchandise brand Sisters Apparel, and serving as Charles's right-hand man every day. During the 6 months that Rocklyn worked for Charles, he maintained an output of 8 videos a month, with more consistent and frequent posts than any other point in his YouTube career. So I think now he did about 1 a week, every Friday, maybe Friday? Yeah, so she was doing like double the amount for him, which would have meant double the views, double the money, double the opportunities. In his May 10th video, Charles insinuated that Rocklyn had a pattern of chasing settlement money from YouTubers, but Rocklyn told Insider people would be shocked, disappointed, and disgusted by how frequently employees of influencers work overtime without compensation. I can definitely imagine that happening. I'm just, confused how they would prove that in court, because I just think that'll be really difficult. But I definitely think it's difficult because influencers tend to treat their employees like friends. So when you're sticking around talking about work, is that then a friendly environment, or is that still work? That's still work, but I think the lines get really blurry sometimes. During the period when Rocklyn worked for Charles, he grew from just under 2.8 million subscribers to over 8.5. He also produced some of his most known content, including a video series with his YouTube famous friends Emma Chamberlain, Grayson Dolan, and Ethan Dolan. Think of everything James posted for those 6 months. I was involved in it to the point where if I didn't show up that day, James wouldn't get work done. Now, he's completely denying any of this. He's saying that she was just an editor and someone who just helped him create content, but she wasn't some kind of catalyst for his career growing. That's basically what he's saying. Yeah, I don't know what I think about this. I understand how important her role was, and I definitely think that he did make more money while she was on board. He made more money than he was paying her, that's for sure. But I don't know if without her, he wouldn't have grown, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like if he had a different employee, he still would have grown just as quickly as he had, because James Charles has a very young fan base that's easy to make viral. I just don't know about this necessarily. Like, I don't know if it's like, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have grown to 10 million subs or 20 million subs or 25 million subs, because she worked for him for 6 months. And yes, in that 6 months, he did go from 3 to 8.5. But since then, without her, he's gone to 25 million. So it's like, it's a slippery slope. I think this is definitely trying to set up a case of I was necessary, I was doing, a lot of work and stuff like that. But I think it can be a slippery slope of like, who helped what and who did what? Because I don't think editing videos is direct correlation to then growing to 25 million subs or doing stuff like that. And he's also heavily denying that he was as lazy as she's making him out to be. So once again, it's her word against his. It's just very difficult to talk about all of this because this is all basically allegations. So apparently he was incredibly unprofessional. Imagine having to go over and essentially pick James up out of bed, tell him to brush his teeth, tell him, okay, what do you want to eat? Okay, someone's coming over to do laundry. I'm going to get your laundry. It's time to start filming. We both know you have to, so please think about it. So apparently this was like their day-to-day work. Now James is completely denying that and saying, I'm a really hardworking person. I don't need you to tell me to brush my teeth. So once again, how do we prove that unless he's got cameras in his house? She also said Charles walked around the house naked in front of her, called Rocklyn names like and once texted her, Kelly, I might need your help shaving my butt, in preparation for a revealing Coachella outfit. Rocklyn said Charles made her feel extremely uncomfortable. He was essentially a child when I met him, she said, but also when it came to business matters and negotiations, he was all of a sudden this adult with a don't F with me vibe. So Charles denied being lazy in his May 10th video and described Rocklyn's claims as absolutely ridiculous, absurd, untrue, defamatory, just the craziest thing you could ever imagine. That's him saying that. He says, my team is like family to me. I love them all so much, and you guys know a lot of them from being in the back of my YouTube videos. I stand behind the fact that they are very, very well taken care of. They also posted this bit about how he got all of his employees a Louis Vuitton matching necklace that she also got. Then she talks about how the concussion happened. They were at a nail salon. Someone described a really like gruesome thing to her and she fainted. She smacked her head on the floor. That's how it happened. And then we go into the allegations that I spoke about, which was she had a concussion. He tried to make her work overtime and work, you know, well above someone who has a concussion, and then he fired her. So that's that. Let me know what you guys think about all of this. Let me know kind of claim by claim. I tried to go claim by claim, what makes sense in the court of law and what doesn't. I think it's very difficult to prove the, like, him being unprofessional, him being a child, him saying a slur, stuff like that. I think it's very difficult to prove if it wasn't said in text or like he was actually filmed saying it. But is it out of the scope of stuff that he could possibly do? No. Like if it was, you know, someone else that was being called unprofessional and a child, I'd be like, oh, you know, maybe it's a lie, but I don't know. James has a past, you know, it's very difficult to distance that. But then it's very easy to prove, you know, termination, stuff like that. But then the overtime wages is also very difficult to prove. So let me know what you guys think. Subscribe, hit that bell, like, comment for engagement, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.